Hi, it's Nicole. I'm filming this on the last day of October and I'd like to chat about all the books I read this month. Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray. This is the major event of the month. Vanity Fair is a Victorian novel about the lives of Becky Sharp and Amelia Sedley and their friends and families during and after the Napoleon Wars. After spending a lot of my last year reading Victorian novels, I finally find my favorite. It's a brilliant show of the good and the ugly, the comical and the tragic. And I highly recommend the audiobook read by John Castle. I've written a series of blog posts this month as I read. Head to my dedicated blog posts that are full of highlights, intrigue and spoilers. I'll link them in the description box. Next, Being the Bad Guys by Stephen McAlpine. This is a Christian non-fiction book published in 2021. It discusses the question of why and how the Christians have become the bad guys in the society in the recent years so rapidly, especially in the West. His discussion and insights are sharp and fresh. For example, how to process the tug of culture wars, the place of gender identity in the context of secularism, Peter's "For it is time for judgment to begin with God's household," and the mindset to have while continue to be the bad guy. Many of these I've never thought of before. Next, Hamlet. This is my Shakespeare of the month. I try to read one Shakespeare per month. Not because I particularly enjoy it, I just don't think I can get around it if I want to take English literature seriously. I also don't read them in any particular order, it's just what I can find in charity shops that month. This feels a bit unacceptable, I'm sorry, but I don't have much to say about Hamlet. Maybe just a little. Why is killing his uncle and take revenge for his father such a difficult decision to make? Is it because he can't expose the murderer because there are no witnesses, but he establishes the evidence and proves his uncle guilty in multiple ways? Is it because he has a mixture of love and hatred for his uncle? As far as I can tell, he has nothing but the latter. Is it because taking life is against his conscience? But he seems to have no problem killing even the innocent. I don't know. I'm just still an absolute beginner. My Family and Other Animals. I'd say it's an autobiographical fiction. Published in 1956, it tells of the years that the author lived as a child with his siblings and widowed mother on the Greek island of Corfu between 1935 and 1939. The book is his observation of a mixture of his family members, mother, sister and two brothers, and all sorts of animals that live on the island. I definitely prefer the sections about people, the interaction between his family members and between his family members and the locals. It's hilarious. Next, Feminism, a very short introduction. This is one of the most accessible, very short introduction I've read so far. They are all so academic. I picked this one up because I need some historic background and a rough timeline to understand a lot of the earlier feminist works. For example, Mary by Mary Wollstonecraft and The Blazing World by Margaret Cavendish, both of which are included in my Reading Oxford Year 2 curriculum, and this did what I needed it to do. One more very short introduction. This is C.S. Lewis. The chapters introduce both the major events in Lewis' life as well as his works in chronological order. I guess each author of this very short introduction was given a mission impossible. How do you write a biography of such a legendary and prolific man in about 130 tiny pages? It gives a good overview, but it feels a bit rushed, and beware the spoilers. Next one, Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis. A 1956 novel that retells the Greek myth of Psyche and Cupid from Psyche's sister's point of view. This is definitely a lesser known work from C.S. Lewis. Greek myth retelling has become a major genre in recent years. I haven't been exactly enthusiastic about it, but I am very much aware of it. So when I saw this, I thought, let's give it a go. I haven't read enough to comment on the Greekness of it, but if you are familiar with his work, the Lewisness is very typical. I finished all the books above and realized there was still 1 week to go till the end of October, so I picked up a few more smaller books to fill the days. So the next is Mary by Mary Wollstonecraft. You might not have heard of Mary Wollstonecraft. I don't think she's particularly well known in the literature world, unless you're familiar with feminist writings. Then she's a bit of a giant figure. Her most famous work is called A Vindication of the Rights of Woman. Mary is her only complete novel, published in 1788. Here's a summary by Wikipedia. I'm just too lazy to summarize stories. Sorry. Mary is forced into a loveless marriage for financial reasons. She fulfills her love and affection outside the marriage with two passionate romantic friendship, one with a woman and one with a man. It's short, only about 50 pages. Although it's on a completely different subject, the writing style really reminds me of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. The narrative of what people do and what happens is kept to a bare minimum, and there are large chunks of monologue about what people think. The similar writing style could be the result of external influences at the time. Knowing Shelley and Wollstonecraft barely knew each other, even though they were mother and daughter. The Contract by Margaret Cavendish. It's a obscure 1666 novel. It might be a work discussing the marriage contract or the heroine's unusual act of taking control of her marriage and life. But to me, this book reads like a fairy tale, especially a bit of Cinderella. So there was this heavenly young woman with all the beauty, virtue and wealth, a protective father figure. Then at a grand ball, the unknown young woman appeared in splendor and disappeared into the night. A rogue prince fell in love. A court scene where the young lady's intelligence and rhetorical skills dazzled all the judges, and they lived happily ever after. Lastly, A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, a non-fiction book published in 1929. Her topic for those lectures seems to be women and fiction. I just finished it yesterday and would like some more time to think about her arguments on women. I was fascinated by her opinions on many women writers throughout the history, by her imagination and the way she presents that imagination to your mind's eye. Overall, I enjoyed it more than the only fiction work I read by her so far, To the Lighthouse. Right, that's all the books I read in October. Let me know if you've read any of them, and thanks for watching. See you next time.